We are not living in a K-drama setting, We are all humans. We are all living in a very challenging world with various demands that press on us. Even the most attractive and desirable partner may not seem so when you are stressed and exhausted, right? So, the biggest misconception couples have about desires in long term relationships is that.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Whale Experiment. In today's episode, it's all about love and the secret to keeping the spark alive in a long-term relationship. Even if you love your partner deeply, you are still two unique individuals with different backgrounds and ways of thinking. These differences can make navigating a healthy relationship feel challenging, no matter how well adjusted you are. The good news, there are plenty of fun strategies and tips to keep the flame alive. On the line with me today is Steven Yeo, Senior Counsellor and Psychotherapist at Incontact Counselling and Training Singapore. With over 30 years of global leadership experience, he strives to help individuals and couples transform challenges into opportunities for connection and growth. If your love has gone from hot and heavy to a slow burn, this episode holds the insights and magic you will need to reignite that spark. Listen on to make the world a better place. I'm ready to die. Hey Steven, thank you so much for taking the time out today to share the space with me.
Thanks for having me, Brian, and thank you for introducing me to the Whale Experiment.
If you could, bring us through your journey into counseling. What inspired you to pursue this path? And what is the end goal that you have set in place for yourself?
Brian, I have not always been a counselor, but I actually spent my first 30 odd years in corporate life working in the technology sector, believe it or not, specifically in the telecommunications network industry. I've always been told that I am a people person. And indeed, my best achievements and experiences have always been with people, my peers, my direct reports, bosses, vendors, and so on. So it was very natural for me to gravitate towards some form of a helping profession in the next stage of my life, as I've always enjoyed talking to people and curious about their lives and wanting to help and be part of. So my journey into mental wellness had begun actually 20 years ago when my wife and I facilitated and supported couples to prepare them for lifelong marriages, something which we are still doing today. So I started to see the importance of communications, the choices people make, the thoughts and behaviors, and what drives people to achieve strong relationships. And very quickly, I realized that there was more to just preparing them for a lifelong journey, but to also find a way to advocate for self-awareness and self-care. So about 10 years ago, I started formalizing my entry into this space, getting my studies and certifications to become a counselor. I also did many volunteer works in schools, in family service centers, and in drug rehabilitation centers as well. And maybe to your second question of the end goal, right? So if there is any end goal or objective, it would really be for each of my client and anyone that I'm journeying with to feel listened to, feel empowered, and be able to find meaning in their lives and to do something positive for himself or herself.
Steven, from where you stand, what underlying factors or patterns contribute to most couples losing the spark in their relationships over time? And how do these dynamics evolve as the relationship progresses?
The key reason why relationships falter over time is that the couple did not put the spouse as the number one person in his or her life consistently. So it is perhaps a great setback and maybe one of the most underrated reasons in a sparkless relationship. Everything is competing for our time and our attention, right? Our career, our children, parents, hobbies, friends, me time, and so on. And so if the relationship is ignored and not nurtured, just like how you nurture things that are precious to you, it will fade away sooner or later, right? An example would be if you have waited for a long time for your BTO after a long time, and if you do not take care of the apartment, it will also deteriorate over time. Another way to think about this is that why would someone stay in a committed relationship if the person the spouse is not number one, but maybe number two or even number three in the pecking order of importance in the other person's life. So, in other words, if a person prioritizes something else, whether it's career, children, hobbies, ahead of their spouse, then the unprioritized partner would naturally gravitate towards other relationships in which they are more important. So, a neglected and unprioritized relationship will be at best functional, but after a while, it will be deemed unimportant and then becomes dispensable. The other challenge today is that there are a lot of influences that comes from the world of relativism, social media, pornography, values, and other secular temptations. These are very real, they are very pleasurable and addictive. And that is why there should be open communication between a couple on these topics and how they influence the relationship and how they would like to manage them.
What do you believe is the biggest misconception people have about desire in long term relationships? And how does that affect their expectations?
Well, desire, as in interest, hot romance, passion, desire comes and goes, and it does plateau with familiarity. We are not living in a K drama setting. We are all humans. We are all living in a very challenging world with various demands that press on us. Even the most attractive and desirable partner may not seem so when you are stressed and exhausted, right? So, the biggest misconception couples have about desires in long term relationships is that they have to feel good and high all the time. This is very unrealistic, as there will be highs and lows in any relationship. And that is why we always say that love is not a feeling, but love is a choice, it is a decision. You make the decision to love the other person through ups and downs, through thick and thin. Loving the other person is not a part time activity, but it is a conscious effort in building unity. And so the expectation is that both of you are a team working hand in hand to build a life that is not only functional, but will meet each other's dreams and goals.
How can couples then reignite their emotional connection when they have grown apart over time, especially when one of both partners feel disconnected?
Well, simply said, do all the things which you have done when both of you were dating. Date nights, holding hands, kisses, talk and talk a lot, laugh and share. Make time to be with each other. The important question is, how much do you want to stay in your relationship? Because your efforts will directly correspond to your wishes. Go for short staycations, go for breaks to bring back or cultivate that romantic spark. But the other important aspect to strengthen a relationship is really to understand each other's love languages and build on this. Many times couples struggle because, for example, one spouse could be looking for words of affirmation, kind, supportive, affirming words. But the other's love language is perhaps acts of service, just doing things, cleaning the house, doing the laundry, cooking, and so on. So they get frustrated because they feel that they have done so much for the relationship, but yet feel so unappreciated. So learning to find out each other's love language and to speak that love language is crucial in reigniting the connection. One of our love languages, my wife and I, is quality time. So although we have 3 children and we are also grandparents, we still plan our couple holiday without the family at least once a year, just the two of us. We started this practice very early on when the children were still young. So they know that this is an important aspect of our lives as a couple.
Could you share an example of a couple who came to you feeling like their relationship was beyond repair, only to leave with a stronger bond? What do you believe was the key in helping them overcome those challenges?
So, Brian, I once had a couple who were very frustrated with each other, as one of them travels a lot for work and the other constantly felt neglected. So, one of the things I encourage them to do is to create what we call a ritual of connection. So what is a ritual of connection, right? So this is simply a method where couples set aside time on a consistent or ritualistic basis to connect with each other. Example, right? Brushing your teeth is a ritual, right? You brush your teeth every day because it's a ritual. So for this particular couple, They created a ritual once a week on the Sundays, putting away any distraction and simply spend time talking, listening, understanding, connecting, not judging and not solving. A few months later, this couple came to me to say that they will not see me anymore as they have found this ritual very useful and they have come to a decision to move out of Singapore, closer to where the spouse travels to for work. So, in a way, I'm very proud of them, right? They found a way to make the relationship work and not constantly talk about the frustration in the relationship. And how did they do that? Because they connected with each other deeply. Their hopes, their dreams, their fears, their frustrations, their struggles, their needs, and so on. So once they understood each other deeply, the solution or what to do next comes up very naturally. So again, I'm very happy for them. So couples who experience breakthroughs in counseling sessions, they are offered a different way to gain new perspective or lenses of viewing their problems. Or they hear something from their partner which is an aha moment for them. Or it could be my clients themselves having these aha moments which they experience when they are talking through their issues. The latter happens quite a lot. Talking through issues often make things clearer.
Do you have a quote or advice you would give to couples who feel like they are stuck in a cycle of routine or complacency and it's about time for them to break free from this pattern?
So Brian, I would like to share maybe three quotes or advice which I find very useful for couples who are stuck. The first is this quote, right, which I like very much. The need to be right and the need to be liked. So in a relationship, it is not always that you have to be right, but it is important that you are liked by your partner. So sometimes couples are stuck because they are too focused on being right. They get stuck in a loop, each digging in and not wanting to shift from their stand on the issue. The second, another useful tip might be to not compare yourself with other people. Everybody has their unique strength and weakness, and so do you. I've heard it said that when you compare, if you are worse off, you'll feel dejected and discouraged. If you're better off, you get proud. So just do your best in the relationship and know that your life is unique and treasure and embrace that life. The last advice is simple. It's the word love. Let me talk about two types of love, conditional and unconditional love. What does conditional love means? Conditional love means I will love you if you love me. Unconditional love means I love you, full stop, with no conditions. So, in a close and committed relationship, let's think about unconditional love, to love the other as who he or she is.
Steven, this could be my favorite question of the bunch, which is infidelity in happy relationships is a topic that sparks a lot of debate. What do you think are some of the deeper but less obvious reasons why someone might cheat, even when their relationship appears strong and fulfilling?
Thanks for the question, Brian. This is also a question that I like to talk about, right? So, infidelity usually begins with a lack of open, honest communication and the inability to have a safe conversation in the context of the relationship. The question that I usually ask when infidelity happens is this: what did you get from that relationship that you could not get from this relationship? And the answer to this question lies what we call the unmet need. Usually, the unmet need starts with a feeling. It could be I'm not heard, I'm ignored, I'm not important, I'm invisible, and so on. And many of these feelings are deep seated. It did not just appear in the relationship randomly. It comes from childhood family dynamics, one's experience growing up, and perhaps some trauma from the past. All these have a great bearing on future relationships, affecting commitment and trust in the present relationship. Sometimes we enter into a relationship hoping to get something out of it. Perhaps you are struggling with your family of origin and marriage is a way to come out of it. Or perhaps you are lonely and wishes to have someone to be with for the rest of your life, and maybe the possibility of having children and family life and so on. So in these relationship examples, the focus is what can I get from the relationship, and not what can I give into the relationship to make it work. So, what you hope to get from the relationship is not something that you can control, but each of you can put in the effort to make the relationship work, which is within your control. So, the starting point is not correct. And when the dream does not take place, slowly, bit by bit, one gets disenfranchised and dissatisfaction sets in.
To further expand, how do you then regain trust if someone has been unfaithful or hurtful in a relationship?
Yes, Brian, the starting premise, of course, is that the couple wants to regain trust and wants to rebuild the relationship after hurt has occurred. Maybe we start with defining what the word trust in a relationship means. The question that I like best that describe the word trust is, are you there for me? Therefore, trust is built by being there for one another, both doing things that will benefit each other and have each other's interests at heart. And when that does not happen, there will be betrayal. The famous psychologists John and Julie Gottman has a wonderful three-phase approach to rebuilding trust after infidelity. It starts with the first phase, which they call it the atonement phase. And this is when the betrayer need to show remorse about the incident, followed by phase two, which is called the attunement phase. And this is the phase where we need to ask the question, what happened in the marriage to cause the infidelity? Reconnecting the incidents that led to the infidelity. And finally, phase three, which is called the attachment phase. How do we rebuild the marriage again? Or, in the words of John and Julie Gottman, how do we rebuild marriage number two? The other important aspects of infidelity is that in many cases, the impact on the hurt party is immense and come up in the form of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Symptoms may include flashbacks, nightmares, severe anxiety, and uncontrollable thoughts about the event. It will take time for the hurt party to recover, so we always encourage patience and gentleness as part of the healing process.
Stephen, as we come to a close, could you give us a summary of some of the key reasons why couples tend to lose their spark over time? And what strategies or approaches will you then employ to reignite their connection when they come and see you? Do let us know where they can reach out to you to should a need arises.
Most importantly, in summary, don't take each other for granted, right? It starts with simple things. Be kind, be attentive, be respectful. Also be generous with your time and attention and affection. Put each other as number one in your life, ahead of everything else. Everything else will be good if your marriage thrives. Because together as a team, you can then face whatever challenges are out there. Raising children, going through disappointments in life, celebrating wins and achievements together. I usually like to bring couples through to reminisce about the early dating years when they are falling in love. Get them to recall what are the qualities and gifts they see in each other and what they did to build the relationship. And finally, thank you again, Brian, for having me. And I can be contacted at incontact.com.sg. And Incontact is spelled as incontact.com.sg.
Stephen, thank you so much once again for your time today.
My pleasure. Thanks again.
We've been speaking to Steven Yeo, Senior Counselor and Psychotherapist at Incontact Counselling and Training Singapore.